Coming up on today's Cowboys Report, looking at some cut candidates for the Cowboys before they get to the third and final preseason game. Brian Schottenheimer saying there might be some guys who get cut that people had projected. I kind of feel like that was probably just coach speak more than anything else, but is certainly worth mentioning there. Now, if you want a Cowboys roster projection before the preseason finale, type me in the comments section of today's show if you want that Cowboys roster projection. Flood the comments section. Type me right now. We'll go position by position. Not every big name, but I got 10-ish names here. And I want to begin with Miles Sanders and what his outlook looks like with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think he's guaranteed a roster spot. I don't think he fared crazy well in that second preseason game. Now, he's got $1.2 million on the cap this year. That's it. All of that is guaranteed. So it is a fully guaranteed contract, but it's such a small contract that I don't really think it's an issue if you wanted to move on from Miles Sanders. Had one good run against the Ravens, was essentially completely shut out beyond that. A couple yards here, a couple lost yards here. He wasn't impactful in any way. And it does worry me for a guy who we haven't seen be impactful in 2 years. He had a good regular season finale performance for the Dallas Cowboys, for the Panthers, excuse me. But I don't think he's an elite level player. I don't think he should be guaranteed a roster spot. I would want to see him play a lot in the final preseason game and compete with some other guys we'll get to here. I think we'll see some Jaden Blue. That's good. But Hunter Lipke's going to make this team. Javonte's going to make this team. There's maybe one spot left in the backfield for some combo of Sanders, Mafah, Vaughn, and maybe Malik Davis, but probably highly unlikely there. And that brings us to our next two names. I think Phil Mafah and Deuce Vaughn are both prime cut candidates. I don't think you're keeping all three of those guys. You might only keep one of those guys. The contracts for both, shocker, are extremely easy to cut. Phil Mafah's got like $110,000 in dead money left. That's it. Deuce Vaughn is down to just, $66K, $67K. Neither guy is we got to keep him because of the contract guy, the same way like Mozzie Smith is, for example. No one has truly wowed me in the preseason. There's been some moments. I think Malik Davis has impressed me, but he's not going to make this team. If you include the taken away from penalty stuff, Phil Mafah's actually at like 14 for 57 yards, and Deuce Vaughn ends up being at 8 for about 30 yards. But Deuce Vaughn continues to operate ahead of Phil Mafah in games. Tells me he's ahead of him. Now, maybe the Cowboys will change their tune come the final preseason game, but I think there's room for not very many of these guys. One at most. So of these four, if you could only pick one, who would it be? And maybe none. None is a valid option, too, if you just want to go with Williams, Blue, and Lipke. MS for Miles Sanders, DV for Deuce Vaughn, MD for Malik Davis, and PM for Phil Mafah. Let's go to Jaylen Brooks, and I do wonder if in the last week we've started to see some actual change on this front. So Jaylen Brooks has hung around the Cowboys for a while now as he's the receiver 6 and helps you on special teams. Again, the contract is a non-issue. He's owed 1.03 against the cap. You eat $41K in dead money, and that's not an issue at all. I think we mostly know what Jaylen Brooks is at this point. He's never going to be an elite-level wide receiver. He's never going to be someone who really, truly wows and impresses you and is impactful. He's never going to be someone who's a great receiver. He'll make the occasional nice catch. He's got 18 catches over the course of his career in 21 games, the 1 touchdown. He is if you were to power rank like the receiver talent of all these guys, shoot, he might be last on your depth chart or at least near it. But he does help you on special teams. And that always matters for this type of stuff. There's a couple spots. I think there's one receiver spot left with Mingo TBD on the exact severity and timeline of his injury, but he's a bit nicked up right now. I think there's one receiver spot available. We'll discuss the two other guys I think have a shot to make it in just a second. But first, Today's Cowboys Report is made possible by Prize Picks. Preseason football is underway. College football is here. So don't miss any of the action on Prize Picks. It is simple to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Always keep an eye out for some of the special promos going on with Prize Picks. For example, Dak Prescott right now is a half passing yard to open up the football season. Put it in all of your Prize Picks slates. I'm pairing it with Xavier Worthy more than just 3.5 yards on the ground. It's just one little jet handoff for Xavier Worthy. I'll also go with Ashton Genty, rushing or receiving touchdown in week 1. Go download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. The other 2 wide receivers I want to mention, Ryan Flournoy and Traeshon Holden. I think there's room for one of those 2 at least, and maybe there's injury stuff that changes things here. But let's discuss them both. Flournoy, again, these are late-round picks. There's not much in terms of the contract, but he was a draft pick. That does matter for the Cowboys. They like their guys. They like the guys they drafted more. Holden has $3,000 in dead money. $3K. That is it. That's probably a paycheck or maybe 2 paychecks for some of you guys out there. Like that's not really moving the needle in terms of, well, we can't cut him. I have been more impressed in the preseason so far by Ryan Flournoy. He is maybe the leader in could have had yards if the quarterback's throw was actually better. Holden has been the last guy into the lineup at wide receiver. He is still buried on that depth chart, Holden is. Like, he is still far behind in that wide receiver room. So I think all 3 guys, maybe Flournoy is the higher draft pick and have the toughest time. I would wager you can get all those guys down to your practice squad. Of note, Ryan Flournoy got himself some more special teams playing time in that second preseason game. He was out there with the first team on the gunner side. Don't sleep on that stuff. That's how you make it as the 6th wide receiver. Let's say you can keep one of these players. Who is it? JB for Jaylen Brooks, RF for Ryan Flournoy, TH for Traeshon Holden. Go vote for me in the comment section of today's show. Which wide receiver would you rather keep if you could only keep one on the Dallas Cowboys roster? Let me know right now. Hakeem Adeniji, I'll throw him in there as the, insert offensive lineman here. I think because of injuries, we've kind of got a more consistent, projections along the offensive line. That right tackle spot kind of feels like the last one left. Adeniji has no guarantee money on his deal. And as a veteran, you could also sneak him down to the practice squad without having to go through waivers, which I think is something that we should consider when we're doing all of our roster projection stuff here. I thought he was much better in the second preseason game than he was in the first preseason game for the Dallas Cowboys. He had the sack allowed in the first and then fared better in the second game. I think Johnny Cornelius, though, on that offensive line has looked pretty good. That he's been pretty consistent and steady. And if it's Guyton, Smith, Beebe, Booker, Steele, Thomas, Bass, Hoffman, maybe Richards, and then Adeniji if you carry 10. Or is it Cornelius? Maybe it's Cornelius as the draft pick. They feel better about it. You can put Adeniji on the practice squad. That's the route I tend to lean. Let's go to the defense, and we'll go a bit faster here, by the way, since we're pretty far in. Jay Toia. I like him. I am not out on Toia by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to point out that despite some praise from Schottenheimer, I don't think he's been consistent yet. He just might not be ready strength-wise as an NFL player. He might need a year or 2 of development. There's no dead money, really. $153K is nothing from that practical standpoint. If you like PFF, you're not going to like this. If you don't like PFF, you'll just chalk it up to, who cares? It's not valuable at all. He hasn't fared great. I thought Jay Toia was better in the second preseason game. I do think that 35 to 40 snaps is probably too much for him to handle right now, and he kind of gets worn down a little bit. but I don't know if he's a solution for you defensive tackle. As of right now, though, he's probably your 4th or 5th best. I just think you need more there. The other 7th-round pick at defensive tackle, Tommy Akambasote. I don't think he needs to be on the team. Has anyone noticed him yet? Has anyone? He made 1 tackle. I think it was in the 2nd preseason game. Much like Jay Tilley, there's no contract stuff to be worried about here. $103K. That's it. That's cheap. Nothing you have to worry about from the dead money standpoint. Has only played 39 snaps, which I think is indicative of. I kind of wonder if guys with Akambasote, like Holden, if they're trying to just kind of hide them a little bit and get them down to the practice squad. As a late 7th-round pick, there wasn't a ton of interest. I think he is a prime practice squad candidate for the Dallas Cowboys this year. I just think you still need defensive tackle help. Your top 5 right now in some order are Osa, Mozzie, Solomon Thomas, Toia, and Winfrey. Daxon, Brown, and Akambasote are just a guy. They're Jags. I don't know if that's really going to be a likely solution. I would go get somebody. So do you agree that the Cowboys need another defensive tackle on this roster? 1 for yes, 0 for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Do the Cowboys need another defensive tackle? How about Payton Turner? And this is not someone I thought was a likely cut candidate, but I think other players have impressed to the point that we should probably have that conversation. Now, the money's an issue here. You would eat $2 million if you were to cut Payton Turner, $2.47 million in terms of his total cap hit. There's some also, essentially you're saving the per game incentives there. Turner got nicked up a little bit early in the preseason. It's fine for now, nothing overly concerning. He was a former first-round pick by the Saints out of Houston. He offers the size that the Cowboys don't really have outside of Marshawn Kneeland as a potential edge setter. And for me, a lot of what this comes down to is, okay, what are you expecting out of Payton Turner? And what do you need elsewhere in this defensive end room? Because Dante Fowler, Donovan Ezeraku, Sam Williams, those guys can rush the passer. Tyrus Wheat is an under-the-radar name to monitor. He always makes some nice stuff happen. James Houston has looked really good as a pass rusher. And if you just want the pass rusher / player, I kind of think James Houston's better. But if you want someone who can help you more against the run, maybe Payton Turner still sneaks in. That, I think the edge who makes it how many is actually an under-the-radar area to watch this offseason. From linebacker, Kenneth Murray is next up here. And this is my one surprise, kind of out there, different idea suggestion. And this comes down to money for me. $7.41 million for Kenneth Murray. Only $1 million in dead. You would just be admitting you made a mistake with the trade. In the end, I would be surprised. I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm talking 1 or 2 percentile outcome here. The Cowboys traded for him. They did not play Kenneth Murray in the 2nd preseason game. I think that's because they think he's going to be a starter in the end. But what if it wasn't? What if it's because they're trying to keep him healthy and move on from him? I think that's, again, 1% chance of that. But I like what I've seen from this linebacking core so far. I think Jack Sanborn had himself a very good preseason game. Maurice Leofeld looked great in the first one. Damone Clark looked better in the 2nd game. Shamar James looked good in the 2nd game. Buddy Johnson, Justin Barron, Darius Harris, those guys can play special teams too. So this is the one shocking surprise cut candidate I'll throw on there. But it is doable from a money perspective. That's why I did want to mention it. Now, we will have Cowboys coverage of all the cuts as they happen right here on the channel. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. Finally, our old friend CJ Goodwin, who is just a special teamer. What the Cowboys could do here if they wanted to was cut Goodwin, get him to the practice squad, and make him a game day call-up if you had to. They like special team stuff. He's always a factor in that area. He's got $1.2 million on the cap, only $167K, rounded, in dead money. That's move-onable. And if it comes down to you're trying to get somebody to your roster that you're worried is going to get claimed, you can always make a decision 3 weeks later about CJ Goodwin. That's not the end of the world for you if you wanted to go down that path. So as a special teamer, sure, whatever. He's not that good of a player. It's special teams. I know that stuff matters, but he's not drastically moving the needle for me on the 53 if I need to keep somebody else instead.